In the quest for one's true self and harmonious relationships, people often turn to books, videos, and affirmations, striving to love themselves. However, a genuine understanding of love remains elusive, just beyond reach. This isn't about theoretical concepts, but about a key discovered by Carl Jung, capable of radically changing the perception of oneself and the surrounding world. If you sense that there's something more beyond the usual practices of shadow work and energy balancing, prepare for a revelation. The essence lies not just in awareness, but in integrating these insights into everyday life, achieving tangible changes that have a real impact. We will uncover the secret that helps you understand why experiencing love has been so difficult and provide a clear, actionable strategy for transforming your relationship with yourself and, consequently, with others. This is not just theory, it's a call to action capable of changing your life. Relationships between people are not just a chain of random events, but a complex system of reflections. The sympathies and antipathies that arise towards others are often echoes of internal conflicts that need resolution. When recalling a person who left a strong emotional mark, whether it's a feeling of attraction or disappointment, consider that their appearance in your life was not accidental. Perhaps an inexplicable attraction arises towards those who awaken feelings of insecurity, or, conversely, irritation is caused by people who demonstrate qualities that you cannot accept in yourself. Using this mirror allows you to identify hidden aspects of your personality that need attention and healing. Until this work is done, the search for true love may be unsuccessful. Instead of wondering about the reasons for another person's behavior, ask yourself, what does this situation say about me? The law of the mirror in relationships is much deeper than it seems at first glance, and strong emotions experienced towards someone can be a projection of your own shadow. Analyzing recurring patterns in relationships is an important step towards self-knowledge. Are you always attracted to the same type of people, or are there those you consciously avoid? Both can indicate unresolved internal issues. The feelings experienced towards others, whether strong attraction or rejection, are two sides of the same coin, each carrying important information about yourself. Understanding this mechanism finally allows you to truly love yourself and others. In the case of an overwhelming attraction to someone, it is helpful to ask, what qualities do you admire in this person? Perhaps these are character traits that you have not yet manifested or developed in yourself. Perhaps you are irresistibly drawn to personalities who live spontaneously and unpredictably because your own life is subject to rigid control and strict structure. Similarly, dislike for certain character traits in others may be due to deep-seated reasons. What exactly causes discomfort in the behavior of another person? It is very likely that this trait is also present in you, but you carefully suppress its manifestations or refuse to acknowledge its existence. Perhaps the arrogant behavior of others is irritating because you yourself are struggling with a hidden sense of superiority that you do not dare to admit even to yourself. Such self-knowledge has tremendous transformative power, but it requires absolute honesty with yourself. You must be prepared to see those aspects of your personality that have been carefully hidden until now, because it is in the awareness of these aspects that the process of genuine healing begins. People who pose the most serious challenge often turn out to be the best teachers in life. Those who cause the greatest irritation can point to deep, unhealed emotional wounds. Such meetings are by no means accidental. They are a kind of road sign, guiding you on the path of self-development and personal growth. These people are karmic mirrors reflecting hidden corners of the subconscious. Until you realize this mechanism, you will repeatedly attract similar relationships and situations into your life until you learn the intended lesson. It is important to remember that just as others hold a mirror to you, you also reflect them. The reactions of others are often a projection of their own internal conflicts and unresolved problems. Awareness of your own internal processes opens the way to deep empathy and equanimity, allowing you to avoid defensive or aggressive reactions. Such understanding can transform not only interpersonal relationships, but life as a whole. Recognizing that the surrounding world is a mirror of your internal state is the starting point for genuine transformation, which begins with self-analysis. The task of self-improvement lies not only in identifying established patterns of behavior, but also in changing them. Understanding which part of the personality is projected onto complex relationships makes it possible to consciously work on healing and integrating suppressed or undeveloped aspects. As you progress in this process, relationships naturally undergo changes. It is worth remembering that integration is a gradual process, and you should not expect instant results. It is necessary to observe your reactions from the position of an interested researcher, without judgment, showing genuine interest. Over time, it will become noticeable that people who previously aroused strong emotions lose the ability to exert the same influence. The most harmonious and healthy relationships arise as a result of deep inner work. People begin to be attracted into life who reflect the healed and integrated parts of the personality and not the traumas. A person no longer needs to look in others for what he lacks in himself. On the contrary, he strives to create connections based on mutual self-sufficiency and completeness. True love blossoms only on the path of deep self-knowledge and self-acceptance. When love arises not from a sense of deficiency but from inner abundance, relationships turn into a space for joint growth and development, and not into a cage of emotional dependence. A person no longer needs anyone to fill the inner void, since he himself is a complete personality. That part of himself that he previously rejected often becomes the cause of sabotage in relationships. It is impossible to love sincerely without accepting oneself in its entirety, with all its advantages and disadvantages. It is worth thinking about those aspects of your personality that cause dislike and that a person tries to hide from others. This shadow will be projected onto others until he integrates it into his personality. For example, if someone's arrogance is annoying, perhaps the person himself has a fear of appearing arrogant. Or, if he is attracted to people next to whom he feels insignificant, perhaps deep down he does not feel his own importance. The process of integrating the shadow is not a striving for perfection, but a path to integrity. And only then, having accepted all its parts, will a person gain the ability to truly love and be loved. It should be remembered that the shadow consists not only of negative character traits, it also hides untapped talents and abilities. By rejecting certain aspects of himself, a person rebels against his own personality and erects an invisible wall that prevents the building of deep and sincere relationships to which he so aspires. This inner conflict forces him to look in others for what he cannot accept in himself. Every time a person harshly condemns someone, he looks in the mirror. A trait that causes such strong irritation indicates that there is something in the person himself that has not yet been accepted. It is important to pay attention to your strongest reactions, as they contain valuable lessons. Perhaps someone else's vulnerability causes discomfort because a person is afraid of his own fragility, or maybe he is annoyed by excessive ambition because he himself does not allow himself to strive for success and recognition. The shadow of the personality is reflected in interpersonal relationships. Often, attraction arises to those who embody the suppressed aspects of their own self. If dominant personalities arouse an irresistible interest, it is worth considering whether there is a need for more power and confidence hidden deep down. A constant search for rescued partners may indicate one's own thirst for care and attention. Sabotage of relationships often occurs imperceptibly but steadily. The fear of being abandoned can push you to subconsciously break up first in order to avoid pain. The fear of manipulation can lead to the rejection of even reasonable and sincere offers. These patterns of behavior are not accidental but are protective mechanisms generated by the subconscious shadow. Integration of the shadow requires courage and willingness to see it without judgment. Each time you feel a strong dislike for someone, you should ask yourself where this aspect manifests itself in myself. The goal is not self-flagellation, but deeper self-knowledge. Integration also involves expressing suppressed parts of the personality in a safe environment. If creativity has been suppressed, it is necessary to find opportunities for free self-expression. If deep relationships have been avoided, it is worth allowing yourself to be vulnerable with those you trust. Over time, these previously rejected aspects will Turn from obstacles into internal resources. An effective exercise is to write a letter to your shadow, acknowledging its existence, gratitude for past protection, and expressing a desire to accept it into your life. This inner dialogue can be a starting point for deep reconciliation with yourself. The paradox of this process is that the more you accept the dark sides, the brighter your personality becomes. Accepting imperfection leads to authenticity, which opens the way to true connection. The deepest and most fulfilling relationships arise when two people meet in their entirety, with light and dark sides, without suppressing or rejecting either. In such relationships, there is no need for someone to complete you because everyone is already complete. There is no need to project fears and insecurities onto others, as they are accepted as parts of oneself. Relationships exist not only for comfort but also for development. Every conflict, challenge, and disappointment provides an opportunity to better understand oneself. In this process, love becomes not a goal, but a path to self-discovery. Recurring mistakes in relationships, such as feeling abandoned or seeking security-providing partners, signal old wounds that need healing. Love becomes a tool for self-discovery and growth, rather than an unattainable illusion that breeds disappointment. Considering love only as a source of happiness and comfort misses its profound, transformative power. Relationships are intense life lessons and authentic mirrors of ourselves. Each person who enters life brings a specific lesson, and if it is not learned, the pattern will repeat again and again with different faces but with the same essence. Patterns in relationships are not random, but reflect recurring elements that connect seemingly different experiences, attraction to emotionally distant people, or a constant search for rescuable partners. These patterns call for self-reflection, pointing to internal wounds that require recognition and healing. Attachment theory states that the experience of early relationships shapes patterns that repeat in adulthood. If love seemed unpredictable in childhood, then similar relationships will be subconsciously chosen in adulthood, not because they are good, but because they are familiar. Recognizing these patterns is the first step towards change. The true purpose of romantic love is not only happiness, but also the disclosure of those aspects of oneself that are usually hidden. Deepest fears, defense mechanisms, and unspoken desires come to the surface in an intimate setting. In a conflict with a partner, it is important to ask not who is right, but what does this say about me? A minor remark that causes anger may touch on a deeply rooted insecurity, and a need for control may hide a fear of loneliness. The strongest attractions also carry a message. Often people who embody suppressed aspects of personality are attractive. The impressive freedom of another may indicate one's own desire for greater freedom, and admiration for creativity may signal a desire for self-expression. Intense attractions are maps leading to untapped opportunities. Even love disappointments, however painful, hold enormous potential for growth. After a breakup, there are two paths: blame the other person and repeat the same mistake, or look in the mirror and ask yourself, what can I learn from this? The reaction to loss determines whether it becomes a source of bitterness or wisdom. True love seeks not perfection in another, but joint growth. In a relationship, responsibility is important not only for one's own happiness, but also for joint development. Each challenge becomes an opportunity to overcome internal limitations and heal together. It is this approach that leads to deep and long-term happiness, independence from ideal circumstances or an ideal partner, and satisfaction in one's own development, and the reflection that another provides. Changes begin with the question, not why do I always choose bad partners, but why do I choose such partners again and again? This shift in perspective returns control, turning from a victim of fate into a conscious creator of one's experience in relationships. Perceiving love as a path of growth requires courage, a willingness to face unpleasant truths, question old beliefs, and let go of outdated images of oneself. The reward is more authentic relationships, deep self-knowledge, and the ability to love not out of necessity, but out of freedom. Recurring dynamics in relationships indicate that the answer lies in the subconscious, and deep emotional wounds await healing. Attraction to people who cause pain or a constant search for confirmation signal unhealed traumas and insufficient self-worth. Recognizing these patterns and breaking the vicious circle are necessary for building healthier and more conscious relationships. Toxic patterns in relationships are like invisible spirals, repeating with mathematical precision. Changing partners does not change the dynamics, which is the result of deeply rooted subconscious programming that controls decisions imperceptibly. These fixed ideas, formed in childhood, determine the understanding of love and relationships. If love was tied to achievements or accompanied by criticism, then in adulthood, a similar dynamic will be subconsciously chosen. Familiar situations feel safe, even if they cause pain, so leaving toxic relationships often leads to repeating the same dynamic with another person. The first step towards change is developing self-awareness, viewing past relationships like a movie, identifying recurring patterns, feelings of abandonment, attraction to emotionally unavailable people, or losing oneself in relationships. These recurring situations lead to emotional wounds. Behind every toxic pattern lies a deeply rooted belief system, such as a subconscious feeling of unworthiness of loyalty or a conviction of being incapable of managing one's own life independently. These subconscious beliefs, like invisible magnets, attract situations that confirm them. Neurology confirms that these patterns are rooted in the brain, strengthening with repetition. Breaking these cycles requires conscious attention and deliberately creating new, opposite experiences. An effective exercise is recognizing emotional triggers, situations that provoke a disproportionate reaction, such as feeling abandoned due to a partner's slight delay or deep insecurity from an innocent remark about appearance. These triggers are windows into the deepest wounds. Healing begins with taking responsibility for one's own patterns, acknowledging one's role in maintaining these cycles rather than blaming others or remaining in the role of a victim. True change begins with realizing oneself as the conscious creator of one's own life. To break toxic patterns, it's necessary to reconnect with one's body, which provides physical signals warning of slipping into a familiar pattern. Pay attention to the sensations that arise when craving toxic dynamics, such as excitement, a false sense of security, or familiar comfort. Consciously tracking these sensations allows one to learn to react differently. An important step is establishing healthy boundaries, not only towards others but also towards oneself. If there's a tendency to lose oneself in relationships, develop habits that help stay connected with oneself. If narcissistic people are constantly attracted, determine in advance what behavior will no longer be tolerated. Establishing boundaries is an expression of self-love and the first step towards breaking old patterns. Transformation occurs when there is enough courage to choose something different, even if it initially feels uncomfortable or foreign. If drama and emotional roller coasters are familiar, calm and stable relationships may seem boring, and that's normal. The brain is forming new neural pathways, and learning to experience intimacy and love differently is taking place. If this work is done, decisions will no longer be governed by subconscious wounds, and it will become possible to consciously choose healthier, deeper, and more fulfilling relationships. This is what interrupts recurring patterns, not changing the other person, but changing oneself and beginning to love differently. Breaking old patterns is an ongoing process, and there will be times when old patterns will tempt again. Each time a person recognizes the vicious circle of destructive patterns and consciously chooses a different path, they strengthen the foundation of their new, desired reality. The amazing neuroplasticity of the brain becomes a faithful ally in this process. Each conscious decision is literally an act of rebuilding neural connections, forming a new structure of thinking and behavior. The true goal is not to achieve unattainable perfection in relationships, but to develop awareness that grants freedom of choice. When a person is no longer controlled by subconscious programs inherited from the past, they gain the ability to create relationships that reflect their true, present self, rather than painful wounds from years gone by. Such love grows not from need or dependence, but from a sense of inner completeness and freedom. True love is not a treasure to be found, but a work of art that one creates oneself. When one loves oneself unconditionally, love ceases to be something one desperately seeks in the external world. It becomes the essence of one's being, who one is at the deepest level. This realization dramatically changes the perspective, because until a person comes to this understanding, they will be vainly searching outside for what they can truly only find within themselves. Love is not a resource to be given or received, it is a state of being that one is. And when one lives from this state, relationships cease to be a source of suffering and become a natural expression of inner harmony and completeness. Love is not the ultimate goal, but a fascinating journey. Society often cultivates the belief that love comes from an external source, like a magical force that finds you if you're lucky. This romantic narrative, however appealing it may seem, dooms people to passivity and dependence. One begins to wait for someone to choose them, to see their true worth, and to love them. But this notion fundamentally distorts the true nature of love. Genuine love emanates from within, like an inexhaustible spring. It is not a handout to be begged from others. Dependence on external factors in the pursuit of feeling loved condemns one to constant need, likening them to a cracked vessel that cannot be filled. Love that comes from the outside is always conditional and transient. True transformation begins with the realization that each individual is an inexhaustible source of love. No one's permission is required for self-love. It is not a reward for achievement or perfection, but an inherent right granted from birth, a natural human state. Tearing down the walls erected against oneself becomes a revolutionary act in a world where a person's worth is defined by successes, appearance, or accomplishments. Unconditional self-love implies treating oneself with respect, both in moments of failure and during triumphs, communicating with oneself compassionately as with a close friend, and recognizing one's inner worth regardless of external recognition. By cultivating a loving relationship with oneself, one also transforms their external connections, approaching others not from need and emptiness, but from fullness, sharing what one already has, rather than seeking what one lacks. Herein lies the paradox. By ceasing the desperate search for love, one begins to experience it fully. Interpersonal relationships cease to be empty vessels yearning to be filled and become fertile ground for personal growth and mutual enrichment. One seeks not someone who will bestow happiness, but someone with whom one can share already existing inner joy and fullness. A partner is not seen as a healer of emotional wounds, although joint healing is certainly possible and valuable. Self-esteem no longer depends on external approval, but respectful and loving treatment from others is, of course, welcome. Such a transformation entails a change in preferences when choosing a partner. If the driving force is a feeling of inner inadequacy, then, like a magnet, people are attracted who are a reflection of one's own unhealed wounds. Inner harmony and self-sufficiency, on the other hand, attract those who resonate with self-love and acceptance. This is the fundamental difference between attraction based on dependence and a deep, genuine connection born of mutual respect and admiration. True self-love is not a manifestation of narcissism, but rather its opposite. Narcissism is typically a consequence of deep insecurity and an internal deficit, which one desperately tries to compensate for by constantly seeking external validation of their worth. Genuine self-love implies recognizing and respecting one's own integrity, with all its strengths and weaknesses. This makes it possible to see another person more clearly and with greater compassion, as the need to project one's own unmet desires and needs onto them disappears. It is important to emphasize the importance of regularly demonstrating love and compassion to oneself. When faced with such complex feelings as fear, sadness, irritation, or embarrassment, it is crucial not to try to hide them or criticize oneself for their appearance. Instead, one should acknowledge their existence and allow them to be, realizing that they are an integral part of human existence, not mistakes that need correcting. This approach of radical acceptance has a profound impact not only on one's inner state, but also on one's interactions with others. It is important to remember that love is not a destination that can be reached once and for all, but rather a continuous process that requires daily effort. Inevitably, there will be days when self-love seems like a difficult task, and old habits may return. However, each conscious decision provides an opportunity to return to oneself and practice self-love. Herein lies the greatest paradox. When one stops seeking love in the external world, one realizes that it has always been within. It is like a fish desperately searching for the ocean, not realizing that it is already swimming in it. Similarly, one lives surrounded by love, but one simply needs to realize it. The task is not to find love, but to recognize it, allow it to manifest, and express it. Starting with oneself, this love will naturally spread to everything that surrounds one, transforming one's perception of the world and relationships with it. For centuries, the wisest minds of humanity have sought to convey one undeniable truth. Love is not merely an action or a deed, but the very essence of our being, an integral part of our personality. When a person begins to live based on this profound awareness, every interaction with the world around them, whether it's relationships with loved ones, chance encounters, or fleeting moments, becomes a vivid manifestation of this universal truth. Every action infused with love transforms into a genuine expression of our essence.